Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something most people never realize. You are not stuck because life is unfair. You're stuck because you've been fighting for your limitations instead of your potential. You've built invisible walls out of excuses, comfort, and fear, and you've started calling them reality. But the truth is, your cage doesn't have a lock. The door is wide open. The only thing holding you back is the story you keep telling yourself about why you can't move forward. And the moment you decide to rewrite that story, your entire life will begin to change. And most people don't get stuck because they lack potential. They get stuck because they settle for patterns that keep them safe but small. Think about it. Every single person has moments where they feel the spark, the desire, the drive to do more, be more, create more. But that fire doesn't die because of failure. It dies because they've built walls around their possibilities. They've convinced themselves that the life they have is all they can have. They stop stretching. They stop believing. And once that belief fades, everything else follows. And you see, being stuck isn't a circumstance. It's a state of mind. It's that invisible prison you create in your own head when you start to confuse comfort with happiness. Comfort feels good for a moment, but over time it robs you of the hunger that makes you grow. The truth is, the mind loves certainty, but your soul craves expansion. When you live every day avoiding discomfort, you slowly begin to trade your dreams for routines, your goals for excuses, and your passion for security. That's why so many people wake up one day feeling like something's missing. They've built a life that looks fine on the outside but feels empty on the inside. And every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," you strengthen the chains that keep you stuck. Every time you say, "That's Jay, just who I am," you close the door on who you could become. Most people think they're stuck because of their job, their relationship, or their past. But those are just symptoms. The real reason they're stuck is because they've accepted the belief that change is too hard, too risky, or too late. But the moment you challenge that belief, you start to break free. And change begins with a decision, not a wish, not a hope. A real decision, a decision that says, "I will no longer tolerate this version of myself." When you make that kind of decision, everything shifts. You don't need to know every step. You just need to commit to the first one, because motion creates emotion. Once you move, once you do something different, even something small, your brain starts to wake up. You begin to remember that you have power, that you're not your circumstances, you're the creator of them. And the problem is, most people wait to feel ready before they act, but you'll never feel ready to change. Change feels uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. The moment you step out of your comfort zone, your brain screams for safety, trying to pull you back to what it knows. But that resistance is not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're growing. Every muscle in your body grows by resistance, and your mind works the same way. The discomfort you feel when breaking a pattern is proof you're creating a new one. And if you want to break free, you must become aware of your patterns, what you think, what you feel, what you do every day. Awareness is power. When you realize that every habit, every emotion, every behavior you repeat is shaping your future, you begin to take back control. You stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. And intention is the birthplace of transformation. It's where you stop reacting to life and start designing it. And most people try to change their life by changing their environment or their circumstances. They think, if I just had more money, if I had a better job, if I lived somewhere else, then I'd be happy. But that's an illusion. The truth is, you can change your job, your city, your relationships, but if you don't change the way you think and feel, you'll recreate the same patterns wherever you go. You'll decorate the prison instead of breaking out of it. Real freedom doesn't come from a new situation. It comes from a new standard. And raise your standards. That's the secret. The moment you decide that what was once acceptable is no longer acceptable, your entire world shifts. If you used to settle for average effort, demand excellence from yourself now. If you used to tolerate toxic thoughts or toxic people, make the decision that you won't anymore. Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you tolerate. If you tolerate mediocrity, you'll live in it. If you demand greatness, you'll grow into it. And don't misunderstand this. Breaking free doesn't mean everything becomes easy. It means you start choosing your challenges instead of letting them choose you. You stop running from fear and start using it. Fear isn't your enemy, it's your compass. It's showing you exactly where you need to go. The things you fear most often hold the key to your next level. The moment you run toward what scares you instead of away from it, you begin to reclaim your power. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in spite of it. And you'll never break free by trying to avoid pain. You'll break free when you give your pain a purpose. Use it. Turn it into fuel. Every setback, every rejection, every heartbreak, it was never there to destroy you. It was there to build you. Life isn't testing you. It's training you. It's shaping you into the person capable of living the life you say you want, but you have to be willing to endure the process. You can't have transformation without tension. You can't become unstoppable without resistance. And you must understand your environment shapes your destiny. Tiny. If you surround yourself with people who complain, you'll complain. If you surround yourself with people who settle, you'll settle. But if you surround yourself with people who demand more from life, you'll rise to meet them. Because energy is contagious. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your standards and the people around you. Choose wisely. If you want to break free, don't just change what you do, change who you're around. And your life changes the moment your should becomes a must. You should work out. You should eat better. You should chase your dream. But none of those shoulds create change. Only a must has power. The moment you say, I must do this, I must grow, I must evolve, your brain finds a way. Because the human spirit will do anything when it's truly committed. The problem is most people never reach that level of commitment because they've built an identity around their limitations. They say, that's just the way I am. But the way you are is not who you are. It's who you've practiced being. And anything you've practiced, you can unlearn. And you are not stuck because you lack opportunity. You are stuck because you've become addicted to certainty. But certainty and growth cannot coexist. To grow, you must step into the unknown. You must risk failing, risk looking foolish, risk starting over. Because on the other side of that risk is freedom. The people who live extraordinary lives are not the ones who never fall. They're the ones who refuse to stay down. They use every fall as leverage to rise higher. And breaking free is not about waiting for the right moment. It's about creating it. You've spent enough time analyzing, doubting, and hesitating. You already know what you need to do. The question is, will you do it? Will you take the first uncomfortable step? Will you challenge your old story? Will you demand more from you yourself than you ever have before? Because the moment you do, the moment you take that leap, life begins to open in ways you never imagined. The walls you thought were around you begin to crumble, and you realize they were never real. They were built from your fears, your excuses, and your beliefs. And you are not stuck. You've just been standing still, waiting for permission to move. But you don't need permission. You need power. And that power has always been inside you, waiting to be unleashed. The question is, how much longer will you wait before you use it? And every person reaches a point in life where they start to sense that they're capable of more. They look around and see glimpses of what could be, a better career, a stronger body, a deeper relationship, a greater purpose, but somehow they can't seem to cross the invisible line that separates knowing from doing. They talk about change. They think about change. They even dream about it, but they never take that next bold step. Why? Because they've built an identity around their limitations. They've spent so long telling themselves the same story that it's become their truth. I'm not ready. I'm too old. It's too late. I've tried before and failed. These aren't facts. They're excuses dressed as reasons. And until you're willing to challenge that story, you'll stay trapped inside it. And the difference between people who grow and those who remain stuck isn't intelligence, talent, or luck. It's hunger. It's the refusal to accept a life that doesn't align with their potential. When you truly decide that enough is enough, something inside you shifts. The excuses lose their power. The fear starts to fade. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions and start creating them. You realize that perfection is the enemy of progress, and the only way to move forward is to start right now where you are with what you have. And you can't change your life by wishing for it. You change it by demanding it, by doing the uncomfortable things that most people avoid. The road to freedom is paved with discomfort, but that discomfort is the sign that you're alive, that you're growing. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts a lifetime. So when that inner voice whispers, stay safe, stay small, stay comfortable, you must learn to respond with action. Because the moment you do what you fear, you begin to destroy the hold it has over you. And most people are stuck, not because they can't, but because they won't. They won't let go of the patterns that keep them trapped. They won't release the need for control. They won't allow themselves to fail, not realizing that failure is the very bridge that leads to success. You can't evolve without falling. You can't discover your power without being tested. Every person who has ever achieved greatness has walked through seasons of doubt, fear, and pain. But they kept moving. They used failure as feedback, not as finality. They understood that growth is messy, progress is uncomfortable, and transformation never happens in straight lines. It happens in the trenches, in the moments when no one is watching, when you keep showing up even when it doesn't seem to be working. And when you're stuck, you must stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, who must I become? Because the truth is, your results are always a reflection of your identity. You can try to change your actions temporarily, but if your identity remains the same, you'll always go back to your old patterns. You can't outperform the beliefs you hold about yourself. If deep down you believe you're not worthy, not smart enough, not capable, then no matter how hard you work, you'll find ways to sabotage your progress. Real change begins when you shift your sense of self, when you decide that you are no longer the person who settles, who avoids, who fears. You must see yourself as the kind of person who bows through, who adapts, who grows, who refuses to be defined by yesterday. And that shift starts with language. The words you speak shape your reality. Every time you say, I can't, you're reinforcing a limitation. But when you start to say, I will, I must, I am, you're building a new identity brick by brick. Your words become your focus, and your focus becomes your destiny. So start speaking in alignment with the future you desire, not the past you're trying to escape. Replace self-doubt with self-command. Replace hesitation with certainty. Replace I'll try with I'll do whatever it takes. And people often underestimate the power of state, the emotional energy they live in every day. You can have the right strategy, but if your state is weak, nothing works. When you're tired, fearful, or uninspired, your brain looks for the easiest path, the familiar one, the one that leads you right back to where you started. That's why it's essential to master your state. Learn to shift your energy on command. Move your body. Change your breathing. Speak with intensity. The quickest way to change your life is to change the way you feel in this moment, because emotion drives motion. You can't think your way into a new life. You have to feel your way into it and then act from that emotion. And imagine what would happen if you approached every day with absolute certainty that you're in control of your destiny. If you woke up and refused to let circumstances dictate your emotions, if you decided that nothing external, no person, no event, no failure has the power to define your worth or your future, that's when life begins to open up. Because when you change your internal world, your external world has no choice but to follow. And people get stuck when they focus on what they can't control. They obsess over the economy, the past, or the opinions of others. But the secret is to focus on what you can control: your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. When you shift your focus to what you can influence, you reclaim your power. Why? Now become resourceful. You stop waiting for things to change and start changing things. You stop blaming the storm and start learning how to sail through it. And sometimes breaking free requires burning the ships. It means cutting off the option of going back, because as long as there's a backup plan, the mind will always retreat to safety when things get hard. You must decide that there is no going back, that failure is not fatal, that discomfort is the price of transformation. When your back is against the wall, you discover what you're truly made of. You find strength you didn't know existed. You stop negotiating with your potential and start living in alignment with it. And understand this, you don't have to do it alone. Progress happens faster when you surround yourself with people who challenge you, who believe in you, who hold you to a higher standard. When you're around those who are growing, you can't help but grow too. You rise to the level of your environment. So find people who fuel your fire, not those who extinguish it. Create an ecosystem that supports your evolution, and watch how quickly your life begins to shift. And there's a power inside you that's been dormant for too long. You've felt glimpses of it before in moments of passion, courage, or clarity, but you've buried it under layers of fear and doubt. It's time to uncover it, because the truth is, the same force that created the stars, that moves the oceans, that gives life to everything, it lives within you. You have the power to shape, to build, to create, to transform. You just have to decide to use it. And when you start, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't wait for the right moment. It doesn't exist. Start messy, start scared, start uncertain, because movement is what creates clarity. Action is what builds momentum. You can't steer a parked car, and you can't find your purpose while standing still. You find it in motion, in pursuit, in the act of doing. And once you get a taste of progress, it becomes addictive. The fear that once paralyzed you turns into fuel that drives you. But you must be consistent. One burst of motivation won't change your life. Habits will. You have to condition your mind daily, just as you would train your body. Feed it with empowering beliefs, powerful questions, and purposeful actions. Wake up every day and remind yourself why you started. Reconnect with your vision. Feel it, see it, live it, because repetition is the mother of mastery. The more you practice being unstoppable, the more natural it becomes. And every time you push through resistance, you send a message to your subconscious mind that says, I am in control. And that's how transformation sticks. Not through force, but through conditioning. You rewire your brain to associate effort with reward instead of fear. You start to crave growth instead of comfort. And that's when life stops happening to you. It starts happening for you. And the truth is, there is no secret formula, no magic shortcut. It's about making a decision, committing to it fully, and refusing to turn back. It's about remembering that every single limitation you've believed in was once just a thought. And if you can think your way into being stuck, you can think your way into freedom. Because the power has always been and will always be within you. And when you finally begin to take control, when you stop waiting and start acting, something incredible begins to happen. You start to trust yourself again. Most people lose trust in themselves because they've broken too many promises they made to their own soul. They say they'll change, they say they'll start, they say they'll give it their all, but then they don't follow through. And every time they don't, a part of them begins to doubt, begins to lose faith. But the moment you start keeping promises to yourself, even small ones, that trust begins to rebuild. You start to realize that you are capable, that you can count on yourself, that your word means something. And that self-trust becomes the foundation of freedom. And you can't feel powerful when your actions are out of alignment with your potential. You can't feel fulfilled when your soul knows you're settling. That's why it's not enough to talk about change. You must live it. You must take massive, consistent, determined action, even when it doesn't feel convenient, even when no one is watching, even when the results don't come immediately. Because the truth is, consistency is more powerful than intensity. Anyone can get fired up for a moment, but very few can stay disciplined when the emotion fades. The ones who do, they're the ones who rise. They're the ones who break free, not because they're smarter or luckier, but because they refuse to quit when it got hard. And you see, most people underestimate what they can do in a year and overestimate what they can do in a week. They want transformation overnight, and when it doesn't happen, they give up. But change doesn't happen at the speed of excitement. It happens at the speed of commitment. It's what you do when no one's applauding, when it feels boring, when it feels repetitive. That's where breakthroughs are born. Every rep, every step, every small improvement compounds into something unstoppable over time. You don't notice it day to day, but one day you'll wake up and realize you've become someone entirely different, stronger, more confident, more alive. And the moment you taste progress, it lights a fire in you that's hard to extinguish. You begin to crave the challenge. You start to see that the things you once feared were just gateways to your growth. You start to embrace discomfort instead of running from it. Because you realize that growth and comfort will never coexist. You must choose one. And when you choose growth, when you start to use discomfort as a compass instead of a warning, your life transforms from the inside out. You stop surviving and start expanding. You stop being limited by the opinions of others and start living according to your own vision. But make no mistake, breaking free doesn't mean you'll never feel fear again. It means you'll learn to dance with it. Fear will always show up when you're about to level up. It's your mind's way of testing your resolve. It whispers, what if you fail? What if you're not enough? But if you listen closely, behind that fear is another voice, the voice of your potential, the one saying, what if you fly? That's the voice you must feed, because fear grows when you feed it, but so does courage. And courage doesn't mean you don't feel afraid. It means you take action anyway. And there will be moments when you question yourself, when you doubt your path, when it feels like nothing is working. That's when most people turn back. But those are the moments that define you, because the darkest hour always comes before the dawn. When you feel like you've given everything and there's nothing left, that's when you're closest to the breakthrough. Life tests you right before it rewards you. It's not trying to stop you. It's trying to see if you're serious. It's asking, do you really want this? Will you keep going when it hurts? And if your answer is yes, if you refuse to back down, the universe starts to move in your favor. Doors open, opportunities appear, people show up. Things begin to align, not because life suddenly got easier, but because you got stronger. And breaking free isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to move forward without them. It's about trusting that each step will reveal the next. It's about trading control for courage. The ones who succeed don't have perfect clarity. They have relentless faith. They know that certainty doesn't come before action. It comes after it. You find your way as you go, not before you begin. And that's why faith in yourself is the ultimate freedom. Because when you believe in your ability to figure things out, nothing can truly stop you. And every great life is built on a foundation of decisions, moments where you chose to rise instead of retreat, to grow instead of stay comfortable. And those moments compound. The small acts of courage you make today will ripple through your entire future. You never know who's watching you, who's being inspired by your resilience, who's finding hope because you refuse to give up. You might think you're fighting just for yourself, but you're also showing others what's possible. You're becoming a living example of what can happen when someone decides to stop playing small and start living fully. But to do that, you have to stop negotiating with your old self. The version of you that hesitates, that doubts, that settles, that version has to die for the new one to be born. You can't step into your future while holding on to the past. The habits, the beliefs, the excuses that kept you comfortable will not carry you where you're meant to go. You must let them go even when it feels scary, even when it feels like losing a part of yourself, because you're not losing. You're shedding what no longer serves you. You're making room for the next version of you to emerge. And that version of you is already inside. It's just waiting for permission to lead. It's the part of you that's bold, driven, passionate, unstoppable, the part that doesn't wait for the world to change. It changes itself first. You've caught glimpses of it before in those moments when you push past your limits, when you refuse to quit, when you surprised yourself with your own strength. That's the real you. The rest, the fear, the doubt, the hesitation, that's learned. And if you learned it, you can unlearn it. And life will always present challenges, but those challenges are not roadblocks. KS, they're reminders. Every obstacle is there to show you how much power you still have within you. You're not being punished when things get hard. You're being prepared. The pressure you feel is not there to crush you, it's there to shape you. Diamonds are formed under pressure, and so are you. You just have to stop interpreting struggle as failure and start seeing it as refinement. Every storm you survive makes you stronger, sharper, more capable of handling the next one. And through it all, remember, your story isn't over. The past doesn't define you, it prepares you. Every mistake, every loss, every painful chapter was setting the stage for this very moment, the moment you decide to rise. You can't change where you started, but you can change where you're headed. You can rewrite the story. You can turn every scar into a source of strength, every setback into a setup for something greater. But it starts with one decision: to no longer let fear write your future. And you are far more powerful than you've been led to believe. The only limits that exist are the ones you've accepted. And once you realize that, you become unstoppable. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I succeed? You stop waiting for motivation and start creating momentum. You stop living by default and start living by design. And the moment you do, everything begins to change. You start to attract new opportunities, new people, new experiences because your energy shifts. You stop resonating with the old patterns that kept you small, and you begin to align with a higher frequency, the frequency of possibility, of purpose, of power. And the world doesn't change when you wish for it. It changes when you do. When you start to live as the highest version of yourself, you give others permission to do the same. You become a catalyst for transformation, not just in your own life, but in the lives of everyone around you. Because your energy is contagious. Your courage becomes an invitation for others to rise. Your decision to break free becomes a revolution of possibility. And it all begins the moment you stop saying one day and start saying day one. And because once you declare that today is day one, everything changes. The excuses that once sounded so convincing lose their power. The fears that used to paralyze you start to look smaller. You begin to realize that all along it was never the mountain that was too high. It was your willingness to climb that was too low. The moment you decide that your dreams are non-negotiable, the impossible starts to bend in your favor. Life begins to move around your commitment. Because the universe doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to energy, to conviction, to action backed by belief. And most people spend their lives waiting for something external to give them permission, to be happy, to take a chance, to believe again. But permission is an illusion. No one is coming to hand you the life you want. No one is going to show up and say, it's your time. You have to decide that it's your time. You have to stand up and claim it. You have to create a vision so powerful that it pulls you forward, even when you don't feel like moving. Because when your vision becomes stronger than your excuses, progress becomes inevitable. And you don't need everything to be perfect to start. You just need a reason to keep going. And that reason can be as simple as this. You were not born to play small. You were not placed on this earth to merely exist. You were built to expand, to grow, to give, to experience the full spectrum of life. Playing safe may protect you from failure, but it also protects you from greatness. And the truth is, the pain of regret will always outweigh the pain of discipline. The years pass quickly. The dreams you delay today are the ones you'll wish you had started tomorrow. So stop waiting for the right time. The right time is now, and every breakthrough. H begins with a pattern interrupt, a moment where you stop doing what you've always done and decide to act differently. It can happen in an instant, the second you say, I'm done living this way, Because the minute you draw that line in the sand, life begins to test your commitment. It will throw challenges at you. It will whisper temptations to go back to what's familiar. But those tests aren't punishment. They're opportunities to prove that you've changed. Every time you face one and stay true to your vision, you're rewiring your brain, strengthening your identity, building a version of yourself that refuses to crumble under pressure. And the old you survives on hesitation. The new you thrives on action. The old you makes decisions from fear. The new you makes them from faith. The old you reacts to circumstances. The new you creates them. And every day you have a choice to live as the old you or the new you. The difference between those two lives isn't measured in years. It's measured in decisions. One decision to step forward, to raise your standards, to stop settling, can alter the entire course of your life. And yes, you will fall. You will stumble. You will have moments where you question everything. But understand this. Falling is part of flying. You can't soar without first learning how to rise after you hit the ground. Every time you get back up, you build resilience. Every time you push through the fear, you expand your capacity. Strength isn't built when everything is easy. It's built when you're forced to fight for what you believe in. Those moments that feel unbearable, those days that feel endless, those are the very moments where your transformation is happening. They are forging the future you. And when you start to live with purpose, something shifts in the way you see challenges. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That's the question of a warrior. That's the mindset of someone who refuses to be a victim of life and instead becomes a master of it. Because life is not meant to be perfect. CT, it's meant to be meaningful, and meaning comes from growth. The more you grow, the more life expands in front of you, and you have to train your mind to see possibility where others see obstacles, to see opportunity where others see endings. The difference between a breakdown and a breakthrough is simply your perspective. When you're in the middle of struggle, it's easy to think everything is falling apart, but maybe it's not falling apart. Maybe it's falling into place. Maybe the very thing you think is holding you back is the thing that's pushing you to rise. And people who stay stuck see problems. People who break free see patterns. They understand that life keeps repeating the same lessons until you learn from them. Every failure, every disappointment, every setback, it's a mirror reflecting back the areas where you still need to grow. And once you finally learn the lesson, that pattern disappears. The same doors that once slammed shut begin to open. The same situations that once broke you now strengthen you. That's when you realize you were never stuck. You were being shaped. And there's a point you reach in this journey where you stop chasing external validation. You no longer need anyone to see your worth because you finally see it yourself. You stop explaining your dreams to people who can't understand them. You stop seeking approval from those who have settled for less. You realize that you don't owe anyone an explanation for wanting more from life. Your vision isn't supposed to make sense to everyone. It's supposed to stretch you. It's supposed to scare you. Because if it doesn't, it's not big enough. And the moment you stop trying to fit in is the moment you start to stand out. And standing out is uncomfortable. It means you'll be misunderstood. It means you'll be judged. It means you'll walk alone sometimes. But that's the price of greatness. You cannot love it if you're afraid to walk alone. You cannot inspire if you're afraid to be different. The crowd will always choose comfort over courage. You must choose differently. You must choose to stand tall even when the world tells you to sit down. And through all of it, never forget, progress is invisible while it's happening. Growth doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It's quiet, subtle, gradual. It's in the small choices, the early mornings, the late nights, the moments when you show up even when you don't feel like it. That's where transformation is born. It's not a single event. It's a series of moments where you keep saying yes to your future and no to your excuses. And every morning you wake up, you're given a blank page. And what you write on that page determines who you become. You can write the same story you've been telling for years, one of fear, doubt, and limitation, or you can start a new chapter. You can decide that the person you were yesterday has no authority over who you are today. You can decide that your past was a classroom, not a cage. The lessons you've learned, the scars you've earned, they're not signs of weakness. They're proof that you've survived. They're evidence that you've been forged by fire and are still standing. And it's time to stop carrying the weight of old mistakes. You can't move forward while you're holding on to the past. You can't reach for what's ahead if your hands are full of what's behind. Forgive yourself for what you didn't know then. You were doing the best you could with the awareness you had. Now you know better, so do better. Use the past as fuel, not as a prison. Every experience, no matter how painful, was preparing you for this very moment. And when the doubts return, and they will, remind yourself of how far you've already come. Remember the times you thought you wouldn't make it, And yet, here you are. You've already survived your worst days. You've already overcome more than you give yourself credit for. You've already proven that you can handle whatever comes next. You are no bit fragile. You are forged. You are not lost. You are learning. You are not behind. You are being built. And every breath you take is another chance to start again, to rise higher, to live freer, to become the person you were always meant to be. The world doesn't need more people who play small. It needs people who are fully alive. And that starts with you deciding right now that you will no longer settle for anything less than your full potential. Because the moment you decide that, the world will start to rearrange itself in ways you never imagined possible,